Welcome to Brave with Lisa. This space is designed to inspire, champion, and equip you to bravely walk in that unique rhythm of grace and calling that God has designed just for you. I'm so excited you're joining us today. Hi, welcome to Brave with Lisa. Today, me, your host, I'm actually going to be sharing a story. And so God has been speaking to me for a while now that I'm to do some solo podcasts, and I have not been doing them because it's uncomfortable. And I just thought, who would want to listen to me the whole time? But God has been speaking to me about being brave yet again, and just allowing him to use my voice, my stories. And so today I just pray that the story that he's placed on my heart to share with you inspires you, that it touches you in some way. So we're going to get started. And today is one of my favorite stories, and it's from my early 20s. And actually, it even starts a little before that. It starts when I was 17 in my last year of high school, pondering, what am I going to do with my life? I don't know where I'm going to go to uni, what I'm going to study. And I came across this, I think it was called YWAM, or it was which is called Youth with Emissions. And they had this program where you could go and study with them for 3 weeks and then go over to a country. And India just leapt out at me on this brochure. And for the first time ever in my life, I thought, that's what I meant to do. I meant to go to India. And so I said to my parents, I want to go to India. I really believe that this is what God has for me. Can you just sign here on this form so that I can make my application? And they said, absolutely not. And I was like, what do you mean? God said, I just know that this is God. And they said, no. And I actually said to them, God's going to change your mind, because I meant to go. And I never used to speak boldly back then. So anyway, the date to the application was getting close to the closing date. And I cried out from my heart. I said, God, I thought you were in this. Can you just let me know? Is it a yes or is it a no? Anyway, that weekend I was on this youth exchange. So I was a part of the youth group, and our youth group went to another youth group and hung out with them. And I think I can't quite remember what we did, to be honest, but it was, like an hour and a half away from where we normally were. And we went to their church service as well. And in this church service, and again, no one knew actually what my heart wanted or what I was asking God about. Someone in this church service stood up, grabbed the microphone and said, God's just told me that there's someone in this room that feels like they're meant to go to India. And God is saying, it's not this year. It might be in 5 years' time, it might be in 10 years' time, but God will get you there, but it's not this year. Oh, I just cried, and I was just stunned as well that God spoke to me. That was the first time that I had experienced God speaking to me directly through other people using a prophetic word, which I didn't understand prophetic words back then. But I knew God had spoken to me and confirmed in my heart. So I let it go. But I still carried this dream of going to India. I just knew I would go to India one day. Anyway, so I went and did university. I finished my degree. I started working on the Sunshine Coast as an occupational therapist. And every year I would ask him, is it time to go to India yet? Is it time to go to India yet? And he would say, no. In this particular time, he said, go to Thailand. And I just went, oh, Thailand. And I had some contacts over there. So I contacted them and I went over to Thailand for 3 weeks. And I had never been overseas before. And I helped out in a children's home for children that had who were HIV positive. And so I served there for a couple of weeks, as well as going out to some hill tribes and working with medical teams to bring, just services out there. And something that leapt out at me in Thailand, I had this revelation, is that all these people that I'm seeing and doing these amazing things, like impacting children's lives and, people in the hill tribes who just had no access to medical services, I'm watching them. What I realize is they're very ordinary people. They're actually just like me. They have doubts. They weren't supermen. They weren't, and there was something in me that went, oh, I don't have to be extraordinary or, super talented in order for God to use me and impact people. It was just this big revelation of, if I just, as I am, I just say yes to God and I just follow his prompting, he's the one that does the amazing things. He's the one that makes it successful. He's the one that meets people's needs. He's the one that impacts hearts and opens doors. I just had this big aha moment in Thailand. And I'm sure there were other things that God showed me and what came of it, but that was the big thing for me, and that I have carried since that time. And so then a couple of years later, I didn't even ask God if it was time to go to India. I just heard him. He said, it's time to go to India. And just in my spirit, I just knew it would be for 3 months. It's just funny. It's not like I heard 3 months. I just knew, it's going to be for 3 months. And so I said, all right, Lord, well, to go to India is a big thing. And to go by yourself as a young woman is a really big thing. And so I just said, Lord, if this is of you, I need you to confirm it and I will go. And I said, the first thing I need is for my boss to give me 3 months off work. And a bit of background, my boss was well known for saying no to like a week's holiday, let alone 3 months. So that would be a miracle in itself. So I approached her and I said, look, I'm thinking of going to India. I just really feel called to go there. I just want to serve over there. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do, but I just feel like God's asking me to go to India. And she said, it's really funny. The last week or two, I've just been pondering, and I wished that when I was your age, I had have gone and done something like that. So yes, I'm going to say yes. You can have 3 months off. And my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, Lord, I love how you prepared her heart before I even went and had that conversation. And I had no idea that he was doing that. So there was one confirmation. And then I just said, Lord, that's a big one. I get it. But could I just have one more confirmation, please? And then I'll go and book my tickets. And he just kind of highlighted this book that was sitting in the corner of my room. And he said, go and pick up that book. Now, I'm sure you're not like me, but those who are like me, you may have about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 books that you haven't got to and you haven't read yet, or you're reading bits and pieces of different books. Anyway, I'm one of them. And so this book that I picked up was actually a woman's devotional that I had not read. Anyway, I opened it and my hands kind of took over, and it just flipped through to this particular page, and then it was open, and I just knew God was saying, read it. And in this devotional, it spoke about Proverbs 31, a woman who fears the Lord is worthy of praise. And it went on to speak about this woman who was single and felt called to go to India. And her friends and family were like, you're crazy, don't go. Yet she went, and she ended up impacting that community, and God did amazing things. And at the end it said, if you're single and you're female and you feel a call and a prompting to go to a country, just do it. I've still got that piece of paper. I ripped it out of that book, and I've still got that piece of paper. I just couldn't believe it. God just spoke directly through this devotional. And so the very next day I went and booked my ticket, 3 months over to India, my flights. And then I had to tell my parents. hi, Mum and Dad. I've just booked tickets to India and I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no contacts over there. Actually, my poor parents, I let them know that if I had to, I'd just arrive in the airport and I would sit there until someone came and picked me up, or God made it clear I was to go. Oh, my poor parents. Anyway, so that was my plan. I just knew God had it, so I wasn't worried. So I booked my flights, and then a couple of weeks later, I'm sitting in surgery. So I used to be a hand therapist, and there was a new surgeon that had joined the team. And so I was invited to go in and sit in and watch him perform the surgery, because everyone does things a little differently in how they repair tendons and whatnot. So I was sitting there in surgery, and so when you're in surgery, you've got the surgeon, you've got nurses, anaesthetists, there's quite a team in the room. And this surgeon was just chatting to me, and I'm sitting on my stool, and somehow India came up. And so he's working on this person in surgery, and he said to me, "Why are you going to India?" And I felt the Lord say, don't deny me. And I said, well, because God told me to. And, already you could hear murmuring in the room, and kind of people leaning in to listen to this conversation. And then he said, what are you going to do over there? And I said, I have absolutely no idea. That just made everyone laugh, but it also made me look a little foolish. But anyway, the surgeon turned to me and he said, come and see me after this surgery. I said, okay. And so, so I went and saw him once the surgery was done in his office, and he said to me, do you know that I'm a Christian? And I said, no, I have no idea. And he said, did you know that I've been to India? I said, no, I don't know who you are. And he said, I've got friends, I've visited people over in India, and they've just retired as doctors, and they could really do with some help. And he said, here's their email, just email them. And so I just couldn't believe it. So I went home and I emailed these people. I introduced who I was. I explained what I was doing and when I would be over there, and could I come and serve them. And anyway, they ended up responding, and his name's Dr. Vula, and his wife's name is Frida, and they're both doctors. So, and he said, I never open emails that I don't know, but God told me to open yours. And come and live with us. You're welcome. And we would love to have you. So all of a sudden, God led me to where I was going to be staying. And so over I go, and I end up staying with this beautiful couple. They were in their 60s at the time, retired doctors, but doing so much in the community, going out into villages and bringing a medical team, and they were setting up churches, and just extraordinary people. And I went with no expectation other than to hear God's heart for the people and to see what he wanted to show me. So I wasn't going in thinking I'm going to save this place or anything like that. I was like, show me where you are here, God, show me your heart. And so I just went to learn. And so I lived in a town called Nellore, and didn't see any other white people the whole time I was there. It was wonderful. I wore saris the whole time, or salwars, just ate as they ate. And I learned how to eat with my right hand and never use my left hand and when I was eating, and it was wonderful. And so while I was there, I just couldn't help noticing the children, and just so many children that seemed to be without parents or without that love and safety that children should have. And so I just asked the Vulas, where's the children's home here? How are these kids looked after? And they just shared how it's been a dream of theirs for so long to build a children's home. Only they don't have the finances, and they didn't know how to begin. And I said, so anyway, after lots of chatting, it became pretty evident that God was really highlighting that we were to start a children's home. And so we just started to put together a business plan. They'd already had a fair bit done. And I just knew that I was to raise money for this children's home and just help them in this. And so I went home and I just said, Lord, how do I raise money for this children's home? Because I know that you have highlighted this. This is something I am to pick up. Sometimes we can get compassion fatigue because there's so much out there, but there's things that grab our hearts. And sometimes it can feel like, who am I to do anything, but also God has given us this, look after the orphans and the widows. And so I just knew he was on this. So I just said, how do I do this, Lord? I have no idea. And he just said, bake cookies. And I'm like, what do you mean bake cookies? He's like, bake cookies and sell them in your workplace. I was like, no, that can't be you, God, because it needs to be something better than that. We've got a big goal here. And he just kept saying, bake cookies, bake cookies, bake cookies. And so I said, okay, I'm going to bake these cookies. And I did up a little sign and, packaged the cookies really nicely. And I would bring them into the workplace. And each time they would go, like everyone ate them. And so what I found is that people started to ask questions and it started to draw these conversations and draw particular people. And there was this one, I had quite a few people just really wanting to become involved and help me. And, there were times when, in the hospital, I remember this doctor saying to me, how much money do you want to raise? And I said, about 20,000. And he said, and he laughed at me and he said, with your cookies. And I just said, yes. And just decided that, God was gonna make this happen. Anyway, so people were being drawn to, just particular people were really being drawn to wanting to help. So I had more people like making biscuits, and then even a local restaurant opened up his kitchen early on Saturday morning, so we could do big batches and then take them to markets and whatnot. So it's creating a bit of income, but then we started to get new ideas, like let's do a garage sale, and that brought in some more money, and I had lots of people helping with that and donating, and that was really successful. And then it was let's do a cocktail party with an auction night, and that made $10,000 in one night. And then it just started to grow, and I just had the right people around me. And yeah, it was just extraordinary how God did that. And so we ended up being able to have enough money to help buy the land. And by that time, the villas were able to get some sponsorship from a European Baptist Union because they could show that they had land. And long story short, and it took 3 to 4 years, there's now a children's home there. And I guess I just wanted to share that for a few reasons, is that sometimes we just think that, who am I and why would God use me? And honestly, he uses everyone that says yes. And what do you want me to do, Lord? And sometimes it is as simple as baking cookies, and he grows it from there. It's being obedient in the small things, and you find that he will then entrust you with bigger things. And the other thing that I love, there's a few things that I love about this story, is we don't have to be extra special or flashy or showy or have all these talents in order for God to move through us and impact the world and impact those around us. And I also love that, when there's big things, when God asks us to do big things, or we think that we're not quite sure, he could be saying, sell your house. He could be saying, move to countries. It could be saying, I want you to give this amount of money somewhere. Or it could be, I want you to resign from your job, but not tell you where the next place is. All of those big things, He doesn't just say it once and then expect you to jump to. He's a kind, kind father, and he knows our struggles. He knows our hearts. So we're allowed to say, can you confirm that, God? Can you confirm that? And I've been in times where God has confirmed it at least 3 times. And then I'll say, Lord, I do know you're on this, but I just need one more confirmation just for my heart so that I can stand on that. When I start to feel a bit wobbly or I have doubts, I can come back to all those confirmations that you have given me. So I guess I hope that you found a few pieces of gold in that, and that it encourages you in some way to really be brave with God and follow his prompting, whether it's small or big, and he will confirm you and he will affirm you in those steps as well. So you feel free to reach out to me and share stories. I love to hear what God is doing in your lives. So please send an email, or you can message me, DM me at Brave with Lisa on Instagram, or Arise Sanctuary on Instagram as well. But I just pray that blesses you. And I'm just actually going to pray over you right now. Lord, I just thank you for just your sovereignty. I just thank you how much you love us. Lord, I thank you that we don't have to be anything but ourselves, and just say yes to you, and you take that yes and you do extraordinary things. Lord, I just ask right now that you bring to mind or remind people of some small strategies that you have been giving and we haven't been picking up. Lord, bring it to mind right now, Lord. And Lord, I also ask for confirmation of those big things that you have placed on people's hearts and that you're inviting them into. Confirm it, Lord. And and just I pray increase boldness and courage over everyone who's listening right now. In your name, amen. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me on Brave with Lisa. I hope that it has inspired or impacted you in a small or large way. Feel free to comment, to subscribe, and share with some friends. And please join us next week on another conversation we will have here on this channel on Brave with Lisa.